Alright guys, so in today's video we are going to be pulling the fuel tank out, the fuel lines, and we're going to start working on our fast fuel system. So let's get started on that, and be sure to subscribe and like the video. Okay guys, on the Excursion there's 4 bolts that hold this cover on. We have one right here, one right here, it's kind of hard to see, right there, and there's 2 in the front also that hold the fuel tank in. So right now we're going to go ahead and slide a jack underneath it and start easing this tank down. Let's get started. Alright guys, so we have the fuel tank out. So we're going to go ahead and get this thing cleaned up first, and then we have a fuel straw that's going to go in here, and it also will hold the return line. So let's get started on that. So here's what we did with the fuel pump assembly. So we took the fuel pump was inside of here, so we disassembled that and pulled the fuel pump out along with all the hoses and the wiring, and then we installed our fast fuel system fuel straw. We drilled a hole with a hole saw, then that will have our return and our suction side. So let's get this installed into the fuel tank and make it to the next step. So in the fast fuel pump straw kit, it came with a couple different size fittings. So let's open up our fuel pump to see what size fuel line they supplied so we can install the correct fittings. So we got the stock fuel lines removed. So we have our fast fuel pump mocked up. It looks like it's going to be a pretty easy installation. We was able to go through one of the frame rails, the cross member. It has a big bolt hole up there, so we was able to use a 7/16 bolt with a lock washer on there. Then we was able to use some of the existing hardware that came with the fuel pump for the Dodge system. So now let's see if we can get the fuel tank back in it and the lines ran to the fuel pump. Alright everybody, so a little update on the Cummins swap. We've been working off camera a little bit, so what we've went ahead and done is we've got our TAC signal wired up. Now that goes into the cam sensor. On the 6.8, that will be a, let's see what color wires it was. I think it was a green and a blue wire. And then we got our coolant temp sensor. We went ahead and took this plug out because I wanted to keep the factory coolant temp sensor for the ECM on the block to know the coolant temp sensor. So we added this second one for our coolant temp gauge. And then we went ahead and did our oil pressure gauge. I did it right over here so you can see. It's kind of hard to see. See it right here. So we got a plug. There was like a plug in there, so we removed that plug, got two little adapters, and then a 90 on there so I could put it right out on the side. The other thing that we've went ahead and done is we have done since how I got the oil line routed for the turbo, we went ahead and wrapped it with some DEI heat blanket. And then we have wired up our voltage regulator. So we use some of the existing wires on the alternator. We use the green wire because that's power with key on, and that will tee into the alternator, one wire of the alternator, and the other wire goes directly back into the voltage regulator. So we've got that harness made up. Now we're just going to put some heat shrink on that, and then we'll get that plugged up. We also went ahead and checked some codes with our data link connector that we wired up. It is reading codes, so we'll have to see if any of those codes are relevant, or maybe just since we just standalone wired it up, might be the reason why it's setting a couple codes. We were installing the Fass fuel pump, but right now we are out of push lock hose. So we got the fitting right here in the VP44, but we are out of push lock hose, so we've got to get some more of that ordered, the 1/2 inch push lock hose. So as soon as we get that ordered, we'll be able to finish the fuel pump hose, and then we'll get to the next